It is Tuesday. RawMikeRichards.com broadcasting from 234 King Street East in downtown Toronto. Out of the Pacific Junction Hotel. I keep telling you about these exciting announcements we're going to make. I know we for sure get at least two. Not today, but it's coming. Just like saying I have an exciting announcement. So for those, please let me make them as soon as I can, because they're pretty cool. So it's really good. Coming up on today's show, Clark Judge. Now it is the Clark Judge from
Talk of Fame Network.
The Talk of Fame Network.
Yes, sir. He is a regular here in the city on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Also, he was part of our morning show back in the olden days. And you know what? Good guy. Looking forward to talking to him. Based out of New York area. So he's going to have a pulse on exactly what's happening with the Jets, with the Giants. And you know what? Both New York teams still haven't registered their first wins of the year. One will never. And the other one is a major, major disappointment.
I saw that Hall of Famer Alex, did you see that tweet about the power football rankings in the state of New York?
No, I didn't.
Started off with Syracuse, then it said Army, and went all the way down. Then it had Red Bulls. Then it had Giants, Jets, Bills.
I kind of stay away from Alex's tweets.
Is he dangerous now?
No, it's a little much. You know.
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize there's a thing going on there.
Yeah, I don't think there's a thing going on. It's just that
you want to fight him. You can fight him if you want.
I might fight him.
Yeah. I'd like to see that actually.
For anybody listening, I want the Jets to finish 0-16. So when you send me stuff about how crappy the Jets are, I just laugh and say that's fantastic.
That's like saying to a Leaf fan when they were tanking to get the number one pick that they're doing terrible. Like, we know.
Yeah,
this is what we want.
Exactly. Like the quarterback they're going to draft with the first overall pick is going to be better than, and I said it, better than Austin Matthews is to the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's how big this quarterback out of USC will be for the New York Jets.
Oh, so you're saying it's going to be
Sam Darnold?
Sam
Absolutely.
Darnold. It'll be interesting. I'm curious to see Josh
Darnold?
Rosen. Josh Rosen, those pretty good too.
Very good. There's a couple. They're in this top 10, and I know we're a little ahead of ourselves. Hey, we might even ask Clark Judge about this.
Sure.
He'll
well,
have a good pulse on
it's
this
a part of what's happening in the NFL right now, and the reason why some teams are doing what they're doing.
Yep.
So it pertains to what we're talking about today.
4 quarterbacks will go in the top 10 in next year's draft.
Well, tell me the last time it was 2 California universities, 2 California like big-time programs where we're talking about the quarterbacks. And I don't mean the freak years where Fresno has one of the Carr sons.
Yep.
Or Aaron Rodgers comes out of Cal, which happens, or going back to Harrington out of Oregon and Mariota. I'm saying that in Los Angeles, where you have 2 of the stud quarterbacks that are going to be playing on Sundays come from those schools. I don't know when that would be. Like, you got to go back a ways.
Yep.
Now, there have been times where we've seen, obviously, Carson Palmer, and then that litany of 3 of them came out. And then, why do I always forget that guy who crashed and burned, who's like the biggest name of all time, goes to Arizona.
Oh, Matt Leinart.
Matt Leinart.
He was supposed to be.
Matt Leinart was a god.
Yeah,
a god.
He was supposed to be like he was drafted, and they already started pushing him towards the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it is remarkable how someone who was deemed the next one, and again, not in a Ryan Leaf way either. I think it superseded that. Like it was. I don't know if you want to, because Peyton didn't come into the league like that. Like, some of these guys don't come into the league. Andrew Luck kind of had that thrown on his shoulders.
Yes, he
did. He's supposed to be that guy, except as we've seen so far in the NFL, if you don't have an offensive line, what's it called again? Yeah, offensive line. I don't care who you have back there. They like, look, we'll talk about the Giants. We'll talk about Eli and his plight, because they're going to get beat up so bad this year, and he might too. He went down 5 times last night. Yep. 5 sacks.
That's not a very good offensive line. It's not as bad as the Seattle Seahawks offensive line, but you know what? They're knocking on the door. Hello, Seattle. We're right beside you.
Didn't you say Seattle has Tennessee this week,
Yeah.
and it was a low number, right? It was like a 2.5.
Relatively low, yeah. I could look that up while we're talking here.
Because I'm licking my lips, you know. Because I'm just
absolutely.
mad. Obviously, you're not supposed to bet like that.
Bet Mad?
Yeah. You're not supposed to be.
Is that a new website? Bet Mad.
Well, I'm going to get you next week, and I'll show you.
You just stay here.
Yeah.
I'll be back in 6 days. Tennessee -3.
How do they not? How does that not cover?
Yep.
How does that not cover?
Give away the points.
Yeah.
Give
Give it away. Give it away. Hello, I'm Russell Wilson, and I just run around and I try to make plays, and we all improvise, and we score. I don't know, 9 or 12 points a game, and tra la la.
Just
Because it literally looks like schoolyard.
Yep.
Where I say, Dave, you go down here. Okay, you're the Coke bottle.
Yep. And you're kind of moving it around
And moving the dirt.
on the dirt.
Yeah. So
It's
go by the car. You're the stick. You like and you know what? Maybe that's too concrete of what they're doing. Maybe they're not even doing that because it looks ridiculous.
Is he doing it on his hand? You go there. You go.
I think he's going in and going, okay, who's open? I'm open. I don't think you are. Anyone else? I'm open. You already said that. Oh my God, the clock. We're running out of time. I mean, ask Eli about that one.
That's 5 receivers open all the time.
Now McAdoo was on Eli Manning last night for obviously going up for a 4th and goal and then taking too long. But I think we'll talk to Clark Judge this morning. And to me, the issue seems to be readiness, about preparation. They're just not ready. It doesn't matter how many years you've been in the league and how many rings you've got, and he's got 2 of them. The way they look, it's like they're not prepared. The way the Seattle Seahawks play, it looks like they're not prepared. There are some teams I look at, and I'm like, they're just not getting after it. And that's the word that I would use. There are some teams that look like, and I'll be honest, the one team that surprised me a little bit, and maybe mostly a quarterback, are the Denver Broncos. Mm-hmm. Because you're still up against that, almost the return of the Orange Crush defense. And look, they've always had those kinds of players. But they've come out like they're a little bit pissed off. Like they've been the team that everyone's looking over. I mean, look, they would have heard way more about Oakland and how great Oakland's going to be before it actually gets to them and a guy like Trevor Siemian. So I'm looking at teams that are kind of getting after them. Again, we'll talk to Clark in about, 20 minutes time here. Denver, to me, is a team that looks like they're getting at. Who for you looks like they're, and that's the term I'm going to use. Who's getting after it?
Jeez. You know what? This is early. This is really early. So I'm reluctant to say it, but I'll say it. It's only because of the defensive side of things too.
That's fine too.
It's the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, that's a great call. A great call.
I did not think the Baltimore Ravens would be undefeated after 2 weeks and as impressive as they have been. 8 interceptions in 2 games. They win both divisional games, which is even that much more important. And the quarterback they have in place is still not 100%.
Yeah, very true. And I think, but in limited action, he's looked pretty good. They look like, indeed, that's a great call on the Ravens, who are known on. And again, it can be your defense that gets after it. It's not always about scoring points. I would say that I'm still waiting necessarily to see, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, for instance. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they've necessarily got after it because the teams that they played, they've started with Cleveland, and then
tight game with Cleveland,
and then they got Minnesota, and some teams. I don't know if they historically say they start off slow, because some teams are money when it counts. Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers, they kind of fall in that category for me, so I still haven't seen enough of them.
Another team for me is Kansas City.
Kansas City,
yeah,
for sure. Kansas City
beat 2 good teams. I will put the Eagles into that 500 class, but to beat the Patriots on opening night in their building while they're hanging banners of how great they are and how they're the team of the decade and everything, and to punch them in the mouth in the fourth quarter, the offense looks a lot different. There are a lot of playmakers on the Chiefs side of the ball, which is impressive because you don't this isn't your father's Chiefs team, and I know that's a popular saying with a lot of people. The defense is still pretty standard, and you know what, right now that division might be feeding the conference 3 postseason berths.
Okay, speaking of conferences, I don't know if anyone's getting after it. I'm a little confused by the NFC East.
Okay,
Eagles, Cowboys, Redskins, Giants. Giants, obviously not. Redskins, again, it's only been 2 games, so it's tough to say, but I'm saying right out of the gate, who looks the most prepared? The Eagles had a tough game against the Chiefs, so I'm not necessarily saying that they're not coming after
And it's
it.
a tough opponent. You go to Kansas City, you know what? Pack your lunch, because 75% of the time you are going to lose.
It's Arrowhead's a tough place to play. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, so the Eagles, to me, if I'm like, the Cowboys looked dreadful in week 2.
And very good in week 1.
Yeah.
So
which one is it?
Can they stand up?
I'm thinking week 1 they had the Giants.
Yeah.
So how much do I put into that win?
Bingo.
The defense looking great. The Eagles, maybe. Here's a tricky one. The Detroit Lions are 2-0. Are they getting after it?
They are getting after it. I really like what they have.
Stafford looked good.
Stafford looks good, and he's spreading the ball around. He has a big tight end. He has a couple decent receivers. You look at the team and you go, where the hell are the stars on this team? They don't have a Megatron anymore. They
Nope.
have 4 or 5 guys that continue to catch balls, and Golden Tate is so underrated, and they made a nice offensive move by putting him in the slot because he's getting more opportunity. He's getting more balls. If the Lions get some sort of running attack, they will challenge for that division, because right now I think the Lions are better than the Green Bay Packers.
Well, there's the second team you got to look at. Minnesota, it all depends on what they do at quarterback, and right now they could be in big trouble. Not to me an attitude that they're not prepared. They might be. I just don't think they're going to have that talent at the end of the day. The Packers have the talent. Their defense looked great in week number 1. They came up against a hot Atlanta team that played like they were pissed off, and they should be.
And this just in, Atlanta's going to win every single home game. So it doesn't matter if New England's going to Atlanta, if the Packers are going to Atlanta, if the Dallas Cowboys are going to Atlanta. You will not win a game in Atlanta this season.
Okay, so is Atlanta getting after it in your opinion?
In my opinion, I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to be cautious about this.
Well, it's because we always are when it comes to Atlanta.
And the only reason I say this is, as well and as strong as they play at home, when you're struggling against the Chicago Bears, that's
a problem.
I have an asterisk beside you.
So do I.
You're not supposed to struggle against the Bears, even if you play in their houses. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter who you're playing. Like on the road, if you're gonna be a championship team, they play 8 road games. They better win at least 5 of them. And when you're struggling against the Bears, they got the win. That's great. They're 2-0. But they have to win that 5, because you win the 8 at home or the 7 at home, you win the 5 on the road, and you're a 12-win team. That is elite to me.
Well, that NFC South is a little puzzling right now, because the Carolina Panthers, even though they're 2-0, I do not put them in the category of getting after.
No, I'm not.
They've not been impressive.
I'm not buying that, just because when the offense decides they're only going to score, 3 or 4 field goals against the Buffalo Bills, that is not good. And you're playing them at home. I just wonder what they do with that rushing attack. They have a couple nice, rushers in the backfield. They're not utilizing them very well. Cam Newton obviously isn't 100% healthy, and you know what? They're lucky their defense is actually keeping them in some of these games, because if they're playing some real opponents, they're not 2-0.
Yeah. So if all of a sudden points start going up on the board, you either have to hope that your defense completely shuts them down, or you're worthy of getting into a track meet. And right now, they're not. Offensively, they're not. Nope. And again, they have changed the way that they're using Cam Newton, but I wasn't impressed with it. I got to be honest. The offensive coaching job, the coaching staff, last game, to me, they were vacant.
Yeah, and you know what's even funny about this? They play the Saints this weekend, and Carolina's at home. The Saints haven't won a game. I'm not going to say that the Saints are all of a sudden going to turn it around,
because I kind of agree with you.
Yeah,
be careful.
Carolina wins this game, but how much do they win this game by?
See,
because you should be punching them in the mouth.
The Saints aren't on the same page. The thing with Drew Brees is, he's one of my favorite athletes too.
Yes.
Those guys look like they're not on the same page, but at some point, he's good enough to get them on his page. That's what leaders do. That's what good quarterbacks do. He's going to get it done. And if Carolina's not careful, that game's going to be way closer than people think.
When it's 12-9 in the fourth quarter and Drew Brees throws an 80-yard bomb to Ted Ginn, that's your difference maker right there.
The one team I think that is going to be getting after it, we just have too small, as they say, a sample size, simply because they've only played one game. But Tampa Bay, watch out for them, Dave. I think this could be a year where they inflict a little damage We know what Jameis Winston's about, but I think they can get enough stops too. This could be a pretty good football team.
This is going to be a very good football team. Nice test for them, too, this weekend. They go to Minnesota, where Minnesota is very good at home, and that Minnesota defense is a hell of a lot better than what the Bears had to offer last weekend. So,
But we don't know who's playing quarterback.
We
correct?
don't know who's playing quarterback. Hopefully we get an update by midweek about Sam Bradford, because he is getting treatment. But, because I was surprised not to see him play, but obviously there's something more to it than what we're seeing right now. So is the Sam Bradford injury 2 or 3 weeks? Is it 6 weeks? Is it a day-to-day thing? We don't know that. But what we do know is Tampa goes to Minnesota. Great test against that Tampa offense, Minnesota defense. We'll see what happens there. But my only obstacle for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is they go the next 15 weeks. No bye week. The bye week's already used up. And a lot of times you need that bye week in week 8 or 9 or 10 just to give the guys a rest. They will not have that. Neither will the Miami Dolphins.
Well, okay, here's just this just in. The NFC West, not very good.
No.
I mean, I'm taking a look at, honestly, who am I taking a look at in terms of, in the phrase we just used, getting after it? Is it Seattle?
No.
Definitely not. No. Cardinals?
No.
No. Rams? And 49ers.
I wish I could say yes to the Rams, but they had a nice opportunity to go 2-0. You have a 500 club coming into town in Washington, and Washington ends up beating you. I'm disappointed about that, because not only you look at that opportunity that you missed, they got the 49ers on Thursday night. So ideally, in the Rams' perfect scenario, and what I think should have happened, we should have been sitting here on Friday saying the Rams are a 3-0 team. And do we believe in the Rams? But that's not the scenario, and that's why we can't really back them right now.
You're watching rawmike.com, or you have downloaded the podcast on iTunes or Google Play, perhaps tune in. We'll have some news about that coming up in about a week or so, which is really good. Some of the things that we want to get done. And we've got Clark Judge coming up probably in about 10, 12 minutes time. But here's something that I was really hoping for. Now, this is
Russell's music.
This is Russell's music.
This is Beef Stew's music.
Yeah, Beef Stew also thrown in by HUD. By the way, thanks so much for the outstanding message that we got this morning on Twitter.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Thanks for making our morning.
That was just huge for us, and we appreciate that as always.
I'm in a giving mood right now, so I want to call Roast Beef over here. If he has his hat on, that would be good, because I got a present.
I think people need to see the hat. I think
is a hat around here somewhere?
How come Sam Adams is getting all this?
I don't know.
All this love, but you know what? Because I like Sam Adams, I go down to Boston. I'll have it.
Sam Adams, if you're interested, you should be sponsoring the show, and we could put your logo up here or behind Mike
and have a wicked pisser.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. So yesterday in Ottawa, 6-2 loss for the Maple Leafs. It wasn't their strongest performance. It was only a preseason game, but Austin Matthews, a goal and an assist. And I promised I would do this earlier when we had Coach Frank in here to help him through the preseason. I got him a 1962 Stanley Cup champion Toronto Maple Leaf figurine. And it's a tough way to start the preseason, but
what an honor.
I hope this makes you feel better.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So what happened last night? What was going on?
Yeah, what was the problem?
They did not play particularly well.
Ooh, good analysis.
Well, there we go again.
What is that, Steve Simmons beside me?
That face-off rule bugged the hell out of me.
That bothers everyone. You know what? We'll get to that in moments.
But no, overall, I didn't watch a lot of the game. I was in class. We were my sports broadcasting class. We were breaking it down as a broadcast.
Did they tell you how to say desert dogs?
Ooh, that could be
hey.
But what I watched, Matthews, Nylander, that line looked good. A lot of the...
Do you wish that you were friends with them and like hot tubs were going on and you were high-fiving each other and stuff?
You were playing like shirts and skins, one-on-one basketball?
Yeah, sure. Wrestling.
That line played really well. The rest of them were... And the defense was a little shaky.
And Curtis McElhinney, he looks like he's in mid-season form.
Yeah,
he's ready to be claimed on the waiver wire, because if he sticks around the entire season, the Leafs are in trouble with the backup goaltending position.
It was a little rough, but first preseason game. I don't read too much into it.
Okay, that's enough for you.
Okay, enjoy the takeaway gift.
Because I know that Dave, I think, is going to talk to.
Of course, I have to talk to my friend Peyton Manning. It's
No,
Tuesday morning.
because we were talking about the Leafs there, and it is the
okay.
the first preseason game. I don't know how he.
Well, you know what? The thing is, when you talk to him, and we'll get him on the line right away, the head coach, obviously, you go to Ottawa, you go to a division rival, and you're not sure exactly what to expect in that first game. So let's bring him in right now. Really happy to be joined by the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Mike Babcock. Mike, what can we take out of yesterday's game? I know it's preseason, but you didn't want to start off like that.
That's true, but can we get the fucking music?
Sorry.
You take a look at the group that we got out there, and there's some guys that want to give her. And last night, I thought defensively, it was subpar. I thought the goaltending was weak, and I thought there was maybe a couple of players that done good for us, but I'd say probably only about two.
And what players were those?
I liked Rosen. I thought Rosie done a good job, and Dermott.
Were they on the roster?
I'll come across and I'll smack you right in the head. Okay, so here's what we got to do. As you've seen, we put an A on that kid.
34.
And we're going to switch the A around. We did it a whole bunch last year. Don't read too much into it. I know people want to talk about that, but
I was just going to say, is somebody going to be wearing the captaincy this
year?
Yeah,
that's what I just talked about. So we don't have to talk about that.
No, that was the A we were talking about.
Yeah, okay, but here's something else too. It's always when you got a good group, you do it by committee. Sort of like if I take a look at Gilligan's Island. So you had the skipper. And you had Gilligan, they call him Gilly. You had Gilly.
Gilly,
you had the professor. But different times, different guys took the lead. Sometimes it was the professor would say, I can make a radio out of a coconut, which sounds fucking crazy. But, he's a professor. Yep. You had Skipper, who's needs some conditioning. He's a little fat.
Yeah,
and,
he is.
And then Gilly, who always, he just gives her a, I like him. So
he's like Zach Hyman.
I've always said that. Great being on the show. I like roast beef too. He's a good kid.
Yeah. Well, he's also known as Beef Stew.
Yeah, he's also just stopped calling Austin Matthews at home late at night saying you got no shirt and stuff.
Mike,
appreciate that.
Hope to hear from you tomorrow. Good luck in tonight's game. The Maple Leafs now hosting the Ottawa Senators this evening.
We play those guys again?
Yeah, again.
Holy shit, Hoffer was good last night, eh?
Yeah, he was.
Do you see Hoffer?
Oh. I don't think he's in the lineup
tonight. I wish he was on my team, to be honest with you.
I do too.
Because Hainsey's shit. So, thanks, Davey. Have a good show.
Mike Babcock, always great having him. You know what? And Mike Babcock heard exclusively here on Raw Mike Richards.
Yeah. Yes. Do people complain? He never said that.
I can't believe he didn't like that music.
How come he never said that? Okay, guys, take it easy.
The next time I get Babcock in this studio, and I hopefully we get him tomorrow or sometime this week. It is training camp. The schedule is a little bit looser. I want him to evaluate roast beef's analysis of the game and if they're seeing the game through the same sort of scope. That's something we're going to talk about another time, but we'll bug him another day.
Dave, nice use of the word scope. Okay, speaking of scope, as in microscope.
Yeah, microscope. When's the last time you used a microscope?
Oh, well, we were supposed to in high school, but I didn't know.
Do they still exist?
I'd touch it and, stuff it off and get pissed off. And, I'd take the glass and scrape it in the floor and go, yeah, you try seeing it now. I mean, that's the attitude I had. Thus, the 10% I got in biology.
Amen.
Wasn't good. Are you kidding me with the new face-off rule? Now, I get it was the first preseason game. You had split squads out there, but you saw 12, 13, 14 penalties in a game.
Yep.
Why is this an area of concern for the National Hockey League? Of all the things that I could think of where there could be improvement, tweaking, maybe something could be introduced that not only helps maybe other player safety, but usually it's the pace of the game to make the game more engaging, more exciting. The last thing I'm raising my hand with the competition committee is like, hey, we really got to fix that face-off shenanigans. And let's not be throwing guys out of the circle. We need to give them a penalty. What? The players didn't even know what was going on. Like, they didn't. They truly didn't. They didn't know what was going on. It hasn't been explained well enough because I think at the genesis of this idea, it makes no sense. Explain it to me, Dave, because I'm watching it last time going, what the Christ is going on?
Yeah,
penalty?
This is going to be a really, really disappointing NHL season if we see 75 face-off violations during a hockey game. Or the other thing too is, and don't get me wrong, I'm not for people slashing people, but any slash is now called. I mean, any slash. We're talking about tick, tick, tick. That's a call right there. That is getting a little, pretty soon, they're not going to be allowed to hit.
It'll be non-contact.
It'll be non-contact, and it's flag football on ice. That's what it's going to be.
Look, I'm sure Ringette is a great game for some. Roast beef. But honestly, I don't need. And do I want to see Connor McDavid or Laine or Matthews or put the name Sidney Crosby not getting clutched and grabbed and
Especially
hooked and pulled in?
One you said, yes.
Yeah, okay, of course. Do I want to see these guys, not hindered by real shitty kind of small Saturday Night Beer League kind of stuff? No, I understand that because we want to see the skill of the players shown during the game. But how? You know what? Maybe here's the thing: just drop the puck. Just go out there, drop the puck. All this, and you see it all the time where guys are getting all tangled up. But as we learned, that was the last thing, Dave, that I was really concerned about. Even as a goalie, as I'm looking at what's going on in the circle, or a guy even getting waved out. At the end of the day, I was like, okay, so our best draw guy goes out, so they're gonna win the draw now. So as a goalie, I'm thinking, okay, so shot now. Here comes a shot. Mm-hmm. I have all the padding. It's pretty obvious what my position is. I got the gloves. So if you want to take a shot, try your best.
Yep.
But I'm not sitting there going, we really need to cut down on that stuff. In fact, maybe I was just unaware that this is what was going to happen. Because I got a feeling, I'm not the only one feeling last night watching going, what's going on?
Coach Frank tweets in, another stupid way to increase the amount of goals in hockey without making the nets bigger. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, I agree. I just didn't understand that in the least. Because, again, what is the accomplishment of that? What is it? Player safety? It's not player safety.
Nope.
It's not player safety. It is not pace of the game. Because what was the reasoning behind it?
See, and
that it was taking time?
Yeah, and we're talking here in the preseason game number 1. Could you imagine Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final, and your number one face-off guy gets tossed from a face-off deep in the own zone with a couple minutes left because of a face-off violation?
And Bob Cole will be going, he's going off the ice. He know what he did. He did that thing, and the referee said, not so fast, mister. And then that's going to cause problems in the last minute 30 of Game 7 here, the Stanley Cup Finals. You want to hear that? You don't. No one wants to hear that.
No, I like the call, but I don't want to hear him say that.
And the goalie's saying, this is going to make things tough.
I'd rather him say he shoots, he scores, or something like that.
And Laine, he didn't like it either. And he's from overseas.
He's from overseas.
And when people overseas get upset, baby.
Oh, it's bad.
Things are happening, Harry.
It's even worse.
Everything's going on. Yeah, that's the problem. No one. Okay, so look, through the magic of Skype.
Yes.
Oh, Skype.
Come on, Skype.
Here we go.
Be there for us,
boy.
baby.
Here I'm hitting the wheel of death.
All right.
Clark Judge is from
the greater New York area. We'll ask him.
No, but the actual service he's with now.
Actually, Talk of Fame Network.
Talk of Fame Network.
He's a writer-host on the network, and he's been with us many times before. First time here with Ron McRichards.
We want to hear ringing. I know that's always a big thing, and it's... Oh, please. It's circling, trying to connect. It's trying, circling. The circle of life.
Rusty Bear, you check this, right?
Yep. Here it is making a very weak sound.
Yep.
It's going to do it again.
It does sound weak.
It is going to do it again. I'm going to hang up and try it one more time. I swear to God.
Should we call Rusty in from the bullpen here, or what?
So we've got the correct number.
I think we should.
Try one more time.
Okay.
No, I don't know what it's doing now. Here we go. Once again, this is so exciting for everyone. They completely love this. This is we should gamble on this.
Oh boy!
It's just making that sound. We need a ring. Can you
bullpen help? Here comes the bullpen help. Let's see if this works.
There's no way. This is so much fun on a live show.
Mm-hmm. It is. Okay, let me go over a couple things while we're talking here.
Yes.
NFL notes while we get Clark Judge on the phone. Andrew Luck will not play Week 3 against the Cleveland Browns, so mark that down appropriately with betting and how you're going to go about it. Vic Beasley, big defensive player for the Atlanta Falcons. He is out for a month. This is huge. This guy was a sack leader of the NFL, a big piece of a Falcons defense that isn't really known to be a great defense, but they do have a decent defense. This guy is the kingpin of that defense. He will be out at least a month. They face the Detroit Lions in Detroit, which is massive. Also, we don't know the status of Sam Bradford. Bradford is supposedly supposed to be playing, but we'll find out shortly.
Clark Judge, it's Raw Mike Richards calling. Well, you don't have to call me Raw Mike Richards. I think that would be weird, especially a phone call man to man. You might say I'm not paying for the service, but Clark. Okay, great to have you on the show today.
Hey, Clark,
we really appreciate it.
Okay, all right.
Look, I'm watching the game last night, and so I get it, Clark, that the cycle of players, their ability to play at the height of their athleticism that makes them great professional athletes. There's a window for it. It's always limited. But the one thing that I think, Clark, at least to my looking at that game last night, and even the game beforehand, sometimes it's about readiness. Sometimes it's about preparation and what that team has brought to the field. And I'll be honest, aside from all the other issues that they have, I just don't think the Giants are prepared. I don't think they're ready, Clark.
Well, they're not ready, but that, to me, is another issue. Sometimes you just don't have the talent. And I think that's the biggest issue with that offensive line. There's nobody that can run behind that offensive line. There's not a quarterback who can play behind them. You saw what Eric Flowers was doing at left tackle. That's a guy that Jerry Reese made a first-round draft pick. And he hasn't gotten any better. And that offensive line wasn't any good a year ago. It got Eli Manning buried a year ago. And guess what? And Eli Manning buried again. So to me, it's as much about talent. I understand what you're saying about preparation. Yeah, I mean, the Lions look better, but the Lions are more rounded.
Are you surprised at all, Clark? And thanks for joining us this morning. Really appreciate you spending some time with us. Are you surprised by this Giants 0-2 start? We all expected the Jets to be the duds of the city of New York. That's and as a Jets fan myself, I'm actually hoping they go 0 for the season because there's a lot of nice star quality at the quarterback position. But that aside, right. I'm shocked that the Giants are playing as poorly as they have been and 0-2 to start the year.
Yeah, me too. I mean, you look at their defense, you said the defense isn't a problem. And I don't think the defense is a problem. They played pretty well last night, with some exceptions. But by and large, you can win with that defense, and it's so much better than it had been 2 years ago when it was leaking like the Titanic. But the offense was something when, you got Eli Manning. The offensive line's got to be better, right? Because they're more experienced. And the answer is no, they're not better. The running game that they didn't have a year ago, that'll be better because the offensive line will be better, right? No, it's not. And you can't protect him with that line or that running game. He's in trouble. So I don't care whether you have 5 OBJs out there. It doesn't make a difference. He doesn't have the time to get the ball down the field, doesn't have the time to get it out. And after a while, with all those hits, those cumulative hits, he becomes a guy with happy feet, a guy who can't wait to get rid of the ball, and a guy who's very nervous in the pocket. And I think that's what you're looking at now. I mean, once upon a time, we talked about Eli Manning as this guy, will be in the Hall of Fame sometime. I don't hear anybody saying that anymore. And I'm on that committee. And honestly, I'd say, no, he's so inconsistent.
Yeah.
Since he won that second Super Bowl, there hasn't been an uphill climb. There hasn't been. It just hasn't been a steady progression north. He's been all over the place, very inconsistent. So's that team. They haven't won a playoff game, and I would not have said that after they beat the Patriots in the 2011 game.
Clark, when you look at the Mara family, who very well respected, obviously in the league, very established, and they, look, it's not like they don't understand football. So when they take an analysis, because it is a business, Do we not put some of the blame at their feet, saying, how could we get to this point where it literally looks like the wheels are falling off? How could we not have replenished ourselves, whether it's picks, whether it's free agency? How much blame do we actually put on the family for this?
Well, they're the ones that hire the employees, and certainly Jerry Reese, the GM, is one of their hires. But I wouldn't get too lost in this right now. I mean, yeah, they look bad. They look bad, but a week ago, people were jumping off the cliff here in New England saying, what's wrong with the Patriots? Tom Brady suddenly looks his age. Well, a week later, very different perspective. I mean, the Giants look bad right now. I've been through this before with them. I remember, I think it was 86. Coughlin was fighting for his life, and they said he's not going to make it, and they won their last game. And turns out they got to the playoffs. They lost there, but he got another chance. 2007, they actually win the Super Bowl. But they've started 0-2 before and righted themselves. It looks bleak. I'm going to tell you right now, they don't look like a team that could win that division. But that division looks eminently winnable to anybody at this point. I mean, Dallas, to me, isn't the team that they were a year ago. They've got all sorts of internal dysfunction, it seems like. I mean, after that last loss, it's a loss. I mean, you lost, okay, you got blown out in Denver. It happens. But here's the coach throwing the quarterback under the bus. Here's Ezekiel Elliott quitting on the team. There's some reasons not to believe in them. What about Philadelphia? Well, no, they just look like they're missing something too. Same thing with Washington. For as bad as they are, the Giants 0-2, they're still only one game out of first place, and it's early. We've got 14 more games. But, yeah, they've got to do something about that offensive line. And until or unless they do, that team's going to be a disaster.
We're on the line with Clark Judge. He's a host of the Talk of Fame Network, joining us here on Raw. Mike Richards, also mornings on YouTube.com. You talk about winnable divisions, Clark, the NFC West and what Seattle's doing right now, and you kind of bring in the same conversation about what the hell's going on with that offensive line. Seattle looks very beatable right now, and at the start of the season, a lot of people thought you have a really nice defense. A lot of people heading to free agency. This might be the last year this defense is actually as solid. They pick up Sheldon Richardson from the Jets just a couple days before the regular season. Things are looking good, but that offense, Clark, I don't know if they can hang with the Lions or the Packers or the Cowboys of that NFC. I had higher expectations, but after 2 games, they're a big fail to me.
Yeah, they are, but again, I would say to slow down the train a little bit. Look at what happened to Green Bay a year ago. They started out, I think, 3-5, and they looked awful. And I, for one, said, you know what, this is the year. This is the year they're not making it. And they did, thanks in part to Detroit losing its last 3 games, including 1 to Green Bay, and Matt Stafford hurting himself. But the fact is they made it. And then they go to the conference championship game. But if you look around league-wide, what's going on in Seattle, what's going on in New York is not all that unusual. Offensive line play, guys, generally is atrocious. It really is. It's generally atrocious. I think all you have to do is spend a couple of minutes watching games and go, and what the heck is going on? It just seems to me that there's a dearth of really good offensive linemen to combat these really super talented and super superior defensive athletes. They just don't have what it takes to keep them out of there. And, look at Russell Wilson. He's fighting for his life back there, and he's running. Eli Manning's fighting for his life, but he can't run. He's getting sacked. Aaron Rodgers is on the move. I mean, you look across the board, offensive line play is not very good. And I agree with you. What's going on in Seattle? I look at them and went, boy, they're having trouble just getting in the end zone. But they're not alone. There are a lot of teams, including, of course, Cincinnati can't even find the end zone. But there are a lot of teams that have trouble getting there. And yet then we look at someone like, the Patriots or typically, but New Orleans. But even New Orleans has got issues because what? Offensive line and can't run the ball. Those are 2 really critical elements to building a successful and deep throwing offense, because you protect the quarterback with that. If you can't, they're coming after you. And if you can't do it, all he's doing is throwing quick slants and screens, and that's not the way to get the ball down the field. Sorry.
Clark, I thought it was interesting you bring up Cincinnati. I like that quote from A.J. McCarron. It was like, oh, what, me? No. Everyone should be cheering for Andy Dalton. He's the one. Right. He should be staying in because I really think he doesn't want any of that action. Sure, maybe we get to see Catherine Webb once in a while. I mean, that's a good thing. But otherwise, I'm looking at Andy Dalton, and look, it's not like he hasn't been under scrutiny beforehand. I don't think he's really even received love after his TCU time. I mean, he really only had maybe a couple of years where people were not sure. Are we sure now that he is not ever going to be that top 5 or an elite quarterback? Or are we blaming more the system that he's in, the offensive line that he has? Which way does your barometer go?
I'm of the mind now that he's a guy who can put up numbers for you, but he's not going to win big games. I've been of that mind for about a year or so. I've been pretty close to some people in and around that team, and they love him, and they think he's a terrific quarterback. I don't see it, and especially guys who look at the playoff record. I think he's 0-4 in the playoffs. He gets them to the playoffs. He's gotten them his first 4 years, got them to the playoffs, and actually fifth year as well, got them to the playoffs, and that was an accomplishment, especially with a team that had trouble historically getting there, but he got them there. And what happened when they got there? They stumbled and they tripped, and then that fifth year, A.J. McCarron takes over, and guess what? They won the game. They won their first playoff game, except they didn't because Perfect and Adam Jones lost their minds, and so they even found a way to blow a game, and so the defense did that time. But I looked at McCarron in that playoff game and I thought, you know what? I see something here. There's something here, and by this time, you really you get what you what you're getting with a quarterback. You really do. I mean, I sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Drew Brees in his first 3 years was a disappointment in San Diego, so they drafted Phillip Rivers in Brees' fourth year. Lo and behold, Drew Brees became Drew Brees, and Rivers was nailed to the bench, and division title went to the playoffs. That is unusual, but it happens. It does happen where guys suddenly get it. But at this point, Andy Dalton is who he is. I mean, he really is, and I think you can win some games with him. Can you win big games? I don't trust him, and especially now with that offensive line. They lost 2 key offensive linemen in the offseason. They're not any good either. I mean, just repeating the same thing. Their offensive line's not any good either. So he's got trouble. I think at some juncture, and probably pretty soon, we're going to see A.J. McCarron, and I think it's probably time to turn the page, and they could get something for Dalton. My point with Dalton is he can get you to the playoffs. He can't get you farther than that. I don't know that you can ever win a playoff game or a big game with him because that's who he is. With McCarron, I don't know. But what I saw in one playoff game where he was pressed into duty because of an injury, boy, he looked pretty good.
Yeah, he certainly did. We're on the line with Clark Judge joining us here on Raw. Mike Richards. Some of your surprises, and I know it's only been 2 weeks, but as team surprises go, what are you pleasantly surprised about through 2 weeks of the NFL season?
Probably Trevor Siemian in Denver. I mean, I look at Denver and I thought, whoa. And but in that division, Kansas City was a team I thought was going backwards. I really did, because the draft of Mahomes with the 10th pick, I thought that was really sort of an unfair and unkind shot at Alex Smith for what he had done there. But what that was Andy Reid telling you, I can't go any further. At least I don't think I can go any farther with Alex Smith. We can't get the ball down the field like I'd like. We can't go any farther. I want somebody who can get the ball down the field. And Alex Smith certainly understands that. That's why he said this week, I don't think I'm going to be here next year. Well, I don't think he is either. But in the meantime, he threw the ball down the field effectively against the Patriots in week 1. He looks awfully good. That team is running the ball. They lost, Jamal Charles in the offseason. I thought, boy, they're going to have trouble. And then they lose a starting running back, Spencer Ware, before the season. What are they going to do? How are they going to score points? Well, they're scoring a lot of points. And their defense is really, really solid. So there are 2 surprises in that division. In the NFC, I'm with you guys, and wouldn't say surprised the other direction, disappointed with the Giants, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, Eli Manning, he's a guy that can pull them out. Do I think he will? No, but he can, and he's done it before. But that offensive line is so bad. Let's just see what happens. Honestly, going back to the AFC West, Marshawn Lynch, honestly, is a surprise to me. I wasn't sure what you're going to get this year after he took last year off. And honestly, the year before, he only played 7 games with Seattle, and he wasn't very good. But he looks pretty good now. He's 31. Let's see what he looks like in November, December.
When you talk about surprises, and again, after 2 weeks, boy, the sample size is pretty small, and depending on who your opponent was, you don't get a lot from it. So therefore, I'm unsure of the Detroit Lions, just how good they are. How good are they?
I think they're pretty good.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty good. And here's why. A year ago, they should have won that division. They should have won the NFC North. It turns out it was Green Bay. Why? Because Detroit went back those last 3 games. Why? Because of the injury to Matt Stafford. He's everything to that ball club. I had somebody tell me recently they shouldn't have paid him the money they did. Well, no, I think we should have. I mean, is it a lot of money? Yeah. Is it too much? I don't know. It's what the market can bear. And is he the best quarterback in the game? No, he's not. I mean, Tom Brady's the best quarterback in the game. And is he the best quarterback in the division? No, he's not. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in that division. Nevertheless, he's a guy who can do for you what others before him couldn't. And we saw that last year with those 8 fourth-quarter comebacks. He did it again in the season opener. He's a guy that can win that division, and they're better defensively. That's the team, honestly, that's improved itself, I think, up front with its offensive line. It's rare to hear that, but I think they're better up front. And now you look at the Lions and think, listen, had they won last year, we wouldn't be asking this question. they didn't, they can get to the playoffs. Now, the next question is, another Andy Dalton. He hasn't won a playoff game. I don't think he is. I think you get something different with Stafford. He's a tough guy. He's a guy who's at his best when things are down, when things are falling apart. I thought he was an MVP candidate until he got hurt last year. So, no, they're not a surprise to me. Yes, they are as good as they appear. And I do think they push and will push Green Bay in that division. And I'll tell you right now, guys, I would not be surprised if they won that division.
Yeah, and it would be something else for the Lions to do that. And speaking of the Lions, nice test for them going into Week 3 with the Atlanta Falcons coming to now. Vic Beasley will be out. That is massive to a Falcons defense that is, still growing. Obviously, they are not as advanced as the offensive side of the Falcons, and we all know what that looks like. That test for Detroit, is that kind of, from the non-believer of the Lions? I'm on board with the Lions right now myself personally, but the non-believer, if Detroit wins this weekend in Detroit against the Falcons, are we going to see more people start to look at Detroit and go, you know what, not only a division possibility, but watch out for them in the postseason because they might be making some noise?
Yeah, absolutely you will. When I covered the 49ers in the 1990s, they would measure themselves against the best team in their conference. And the best team in their conference in the early 90s was Dallas. And actually for the first 5 years, it was Dallas. And so they manned themselves to compete and overcome. In 94, they overhauled their linebacking core. They brought in Deion Sanders. They brought in Charles Mann. They brought in Richard Dent. They brought in all these free agents because the idea was we're going to beat Dallas at their game. What hurt us a year ago? We're going to overcome Dallas. Now I think Detroit looks at this and says, listen, we've got a chance now to beat the defending NFC champion. They're the best team in the NFC. Until or unless somebody beats them, they're the best team in the NFC. And they should be Super Bowl champions. They should have been. New England had played a great game. Tom Brady was tremendous, but they gave them the opportunity. They kicked that game to the curb. So now we have a chance to make a statement here. We have a chance to tell our fans that we can play on the same level with a team that was the best in the NFC a year ago and a team that should have beaten Tom Brady and the Patriots. And, if they win this game, you're going to have a lot of people going, Detroit? Huh? Detroit? But you guys are on it before anyone else. Canada's way ahead of us now. So, you guys are on top of it. You're absolutely right.
And finally, let's talk about the Jets. I mean, they pretty much took a knee before the season started, and maybe they start punting on first down. I mean, I don't know what they got to do, but if they're looking at what's coming down the pipeline, and again, as you look at teams who literally, I'm not saying tank necessarily, but if you want to use that word, if you see a Josh Rosen coming out, if you see a Sam Darnold coming out, and again, between those two, I'm trying to think the last time where I saw both Los Angeles area universities where their quarterbacks were the talk of the NFL. It's been a long time since that happened at once, and I think it's exciting. Like I'm old school. I mean, I lived in Eugene, Oregon when it was the Pac-8, so I'm going back a ways, but I kind of like it.
Terry Baker.
Yeah. If you're looking, and let's say the Jets do what they want to do, and they roll over this year, and they have, and again, we're just really at the start of college ball itself. Of the talk that you hear, which guy, if it is possible that one of these guys would be number one, or at least the choice of, let's say, a Jets, which way do you think they'd lean?
Darnold. I think Darnold's the guy right now. In a pro-style offense, he's making more mistakes this year. I mean, the interceptions are up, the touchdowns are down. But Darnold's the guy. I think people look at him as that guy. It's just he's got pro quarterback stamped all over him. Now, the drawback is people say, well, when's the last great quarterback that came out of USC? Carson Palmer? He's not exactly a great quarterback. He was good. He was very good. He's not anymore, but he was very good when he was with Cincinnati and, early with Arizona. But and then, with UCLA, Rosen, I like what I see with him. I mean, he's got to try to outscore that defense. To me, he's the collegiate football versions of Drew Brees. I mean, you have to try to outscore your own defense, and that's tough. But I think Darnold's the guy, and I think that's always been the guy in terms of who they're talking about with the Jets from the very beginning. I know, again, people in and around that team, and know writers in that city, Darnold's always been the name that comes up, and it was about playing for Darnold. Now, it's funny, I was thinking of something while you were talking about that. It sort of reminds me of Indianapolis, when Andrew Luck was coming out. And there's another team you're talking about surprised at Indianapolis. I'm surprised at how bad the Colts are. And the question is now, who's going to get that number one pick? 2 weeks into the season, you guys might say it might be either of those two New York teams. not going to be. The Giants are far better. But the Jets, you look around, and they've got to basically, which they've done, strip that place apart, tool it down, and then rebuild from the bottom. They're doing that, except you've got a 38-year-old quarterback. Well, there's a spot where they're just waiting for somebody, a young guy, to come and take his place. And they gave Christian Hackenberg every opportunity this summer to do it. He can't. He's the third-string quarterback, guys. That's how bad it is. They gave him an opportunity to start. He's the third-string quarterback behind Petty and McCown. So it's a situation where there's nobody there. They're simply going to find out about other positions this season. They're going to win a game somewhere along the line. They'll win a game, but I have no doubt in my mind they'll be the team sitting with the first pick. And right now, I'd say there's no double in my mind who they'll take. It'll be Sam Darnold from USC.
Clark, are you a born and raised New York area guy? Where did you grow up?
No. Some people say I haven't grown up. My wife says I haven't grown up yet, but my dad was in the military, the U.S. Marine Corps, so we moved all over the country and the world when I was a kid, and went to 3 high schools in 4 years. So we lived in Hawaii, we lived up and down the East Coast, Newport, Rhode Island, Camp Lejeune, Quantico, places like that, Norfolk. So I lived all over the place, and then I finally I moved to Baltimore and covered the Baltimore Colts, and went out to San Diego, covered the Chargers, moved up to San Francisco, covered the 49ers, came back and got married actually to my wife in New York City. And we lived there since we got married. So that's how I got to New York. I've been around the Northeast for much of my life. I went to school up in New England, went to a place called Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. But I'm back here sort of reluctantly, but I love being back here. But I thought I was staying in California, but then I got married, and we're staying in the Northeast.
So you're like the Johnny Cash song. You've been everywhere. It's safe to say.
Yeah, that's right. But I tell you, it's fun being back here because, guys, actually, I get a chance now to see a guy that I love watching. That's Tom Brady, and I've mentioned to you before. Being on the Hall of Fame committee, we deal with a lot of exceptional athletes. This guy is so extraordinary, and I marvel at the people who want to poke holes in his career or say, well, he's a horizontal passer. These passes are 3 and 5 yards. He's extraordinary, and what he's doing at the age of 40 is something to behold, and we won't appreciate it until he's gone. And like everything else, you don't know what you have until he's gone. I get to see him each week, and I really enjoy it. I love being around that guy and around that team. It's very difficult to deal with the head coach at times. I'm not saying I'm there every week. I'm not, but I've dealt with him in the past. And there's just something about Brady, a competitive quality that I marvel at. And you see it in the great ones, but you don't see it translated into what he's done, which is 7 Super Bowls and 5 championships, especially doing what he did at the age of 39 in the most recent Super Bowl when we were talking about Atlanta.
Well, and so when I look at this path you've taken, Clark, why a Habs fan? Why?
Because I love teams that win. You go, then why? No. I'll tell you why. When I was a kid, I loved watching them play, but that was certainly a long time. I go back probably much younger than you guys. I remember the Bellevaux teams, and they had so many great stars. Cornway was my favorite player. I love Yvonne Cornway.
Sure.
And honestly, I hate to admit this, but I will. I love the sweater. I love the sweater.
It's a classic. It is.
It's a beautiful and there was a dignity about the Forum when they played there. The people in coats and ties. There was a dignity about that I loved, and so I just hung on to it. I hung on to it, and they're not. It was sad for me to see. I'd say to my wife, we get the center ice, and so we watch them all the time. Try to watch as many games as possible during the year. And when Bellevaux would be shown, at center ice, watching the games he did at the home games, I said to my wife, I can only imagine what he's thinking watching this team in those sweaters. It's not even close to those clubs. Ted Robinson, Bellevaux, LaPerriere. But I love. I just love the aura around that club, mostly because of the history, mostly because of what I remember. Honestly, there's not a Montreal Canadian who's my favorite hockey player. There's not. My favorite hockey player of all time is Bobby Orr. I've never seen anybody in any sport dominate a sport like Bobby Orr. And here in the United States, people say, Michael Jordan went. He's not even close to what Bobby Orr was so good. He killed 2-minute penalties by himself. Unfortunately, he wasn't in a video era where we get those things readily, available.
Yeah.
We see things today over and over and over again. What Bobby Orr did on a daily basis, and I had the pleasure of seeing him, when he was a kid. When I saw him when he was 18 in Boston Garden, and I remember seeing him. My sister was in college. I went, I've never seen anything like this. This guy's unreal. It was such a privileged to watch him play and privileged to watch that team. While I was a Canadian fan, I was a Bobby Orr fan, and I've got a Bobby Orr sweatshirt, and it's got the Bruins spoke, which I loathe because I loathe the Bruins.
You have to. Yeah.
Because of Orr. Yeah, and I've got Montreal Canadian sweatshirts, which I wear all the time. But that one, I just love Bobby Orr, guys. And honestly, anyone who didn't see him, I feel sorry for him because when people tell me, the greatest player was this guy and this guy, it's the same thing we deal with the Hall of Fame. They're generally modern or more recent, really recent players that the latest is the greatest. And you'll mention a name to them, for instance, like, Jack Lambert. And I had a guy say to me, "Who's Jack Lambert?"
Oh, boy.
Jack Lambert of the Steel Curtain, Pittsburgh. And he goes, "I've never heard of him." He said, "I've never heard of him." He's not on the board. He's not on the board because I've never heard of him. And he's a prominent national writer. And I said, "How could you never have heard of Jack Lambert?" He said, "When did he play?" And I said, "The Steel Curtain in the 70s. And he goes, "Well, that's before I was born, so I really should know about him." And I said, wait a second.
Yeah.
You cover this league. I said, Abraham Lincoln was the president way before I was born. I'll tell you what, I know about Abraham Lincoln.
Yep.
You have to know about this guy if you're covering this. Same thing about Bobby Orr. I mean, if you're a hockey fan, you have to know about Bobby Orr. I'm sorry to get off on a tangent.
No, Clark, but you bring up something. You bring up something that I've always said, which is, and it's funny that you sitting on a board that of Hall of Fame status. I find it difficult when guys want to get into arguments about players from different generations and who would beat who or who was better than who. I said, well, I can't make that comparison. So I'm going to compare Howie Morenz to, you're the best of that era of that time. And it's not really transferable to me. So all of a sudden I'm going to then have to compare Johnny Unitas to Tom Brady. I can't. The rules aren't even, back then you could literally, what, Deacon Jones would do, you'd be arrested for on the street. It was a different era, a different time. And I hate that whole, well, who was better? Because generationally, I just don't, even equipment alone, I just can't make the comparison.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that. And I find, honestly, what happens is the response you get is, you're an old fogey. You're just an old guy. You sound like your father. And I do. I probably sound like my father or grandfather. But I go, listen, I've seen these guys. I saw Unitas. I mean, I saw the first game I ever saw was the 58 championship game. I was a kid, and I watched it on TV.
Wow.
And I was enthralled by it. And so I actually got Unitas signed a football for me. I got some photos that Unitas signed for me. And I got to know him briefly much later. And I said, I know I'm not supposed to say this. This is what I was covering the 49ers, covering Joe Montana and Steve Young and those guys. And I said, no, I'm not supposed to say this, but it's a privilege talking to you. I watched you play, and I've never seen anyone better. It was a privilege to watch you play. It's like, you go we go to museums in New York, and you see somebody go, God, what is beautiful. That's the way it looked to me when Unitas was playing. And I would ask you guys, or anyone out there, if you can find videotape of the 58 championship game, and you watch Unitas and the Colts in that game, there's a real artistry to sort of the choreography of that game. It's in black and white, which even adds to it. And you watch Unitas handle the ball, and I would defy you to find a better ball handler. And someone say, well, Peyton Manning. Look at Unitas. You can't follow the ball half the time, and you're right. It's going downfield. Receivers are getting mugged. There's contact everywhere. And yet the game it's a thing of beauty. I mean, and when the Unitas had the ball with 2 minutes to go, there was no question in my mind he was going to get down the field, but and he was going to score. He was going to beat you. But there's such a difference in the rules today. To me, it's a lot of it's, I hate to say this, I think it's affected by fantasy football. We want to see offense. I love when the Steelers play the Ravens. I love it because they're low-scoring defensive games. They're games that to me are about football. But too much of it's more like touch football today. You watch up and down the field, especially the college game is ridiculous with some of these scores. But you can't touch the receivers. No one's allowed to play defense. When we watched videotapes of Chris Hamburger at the Hall of Fame when he was elected years ago, then they showed the videotape of Chris Hamburger. Every shot they took was a headshot. It was a headshot of the quarterback. Every shot. And you looked and went, well, I don't think we can't show that one. No, we can't show that one. He would have been flagged for everything, but it was a completely different game. And now you breathe on the quarterback and it's 15 yards.
Yeah, well, and they're tossing kids out of those college games left and right. Like sometimes you go for popcorn or whatever, or a beer or whatever. You come back, half the defensive backs have been thrown out of the game. I'm like, what happened? That's what they do.
And I understand what the league's doing. Listen, I mean, your listeners might say, well, he wants to go back to the violence. No, I understand what the league's trying to do. I mean, with a concussion, it's a big deal. I mean, they're trying to mitigate the violence. Unfortunately, they've got a problem because what attracted people to the game, what it made it so attractive to them, was the violence that they're trying to mitigate now. And it's a tough deal. It's a very tough balancing act. And I think they have to do it. I don't know where we go from here, but it is a different game. I think the reason you watch some of those games in the 50s and 60s, they were played at a slower speed. Obviously, they were different. They were different athletes. They played at a slower speed. And I'm 100% with you on the generational thing. This thing of all time, you can't ever do that. I mean, someone asked me once, who would be the first player you take in a basketball draft? And I said, Bill Russell. I went, Michael Jordan. I said, Bill Russell. You'd never lose. I mean, never. What do you win? 11 championships in 13 years? You never lose.
Yeah.
Now, is he the greatest individual player? No, but you never lose with him. But that's just looking at that. I mean, you're right. If you're the best in your generation, guys today, football players today, have so much available to them that a Unitas or a Fran Tarkenton didn't. Don Meredith, any of the Wyatt Tittle, they didn't have those available to them because we've learned a lot more. And technologically, we've got so far advanced. So they're training and practicing all year round. Johnny Unitas was working in the off season. Most of in fact, all those Colts were working in the off season in Baltimore. Unitas had a bar there, which was great. I mean, he had a bar restaurant, the Golden Arm, which was great.
See, that makes him even greater to me. If you are Johnny Unitas and in the off season your job is running a bar, you are the greatest of all time, bar none. No pun intended. Hey, Clark, we got to.
It's just I mean, it was fun. It was fun. It was fun to watch him.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us here this morning. We really appreciate it. It's always a great time, and I love the fact that, again, one of the reasons that we've done this is because we can freelance and talk about what we want. There is no time on it, and a great conversation is a great conversation. That's exactly what we had here this morning, and I thank you so much, and hopefully we can catch up with you again sometime.
My pleasure. Anytime you want to talk Habs, guy, give me a call.
Thanks, Clark.
That is Clark Judge joining us here from the Talk of Fame Radio Network. Is that what I'm calling it?
You got
Radio
it.
Network?
Talk of Fame Radio Network.
And
longtime supporter of the show at different levels of where we've been and so forth. And, an awesome guy and really knows his NFL, as you can probably tell there by the last half hour.
Going all the way back to watching the championship in 1958. I mean, that is, and again, gets into that conversation about who's better when, and it's just not my thing. And I agree with him. By the way, we talked about A.J. McCarron and the possibility that he might see the ball at some point. He still is sort of saying let's still make sure we all get behind Andy Dalton. The good news would be that you're going to see more of Catherine Webb. Catherine Webb, who he met at school in Alabama. Now his wife, correct? They're married now.
That is correct.
If you're not familiar with Catherine Webb, courtesy of ABC and a really show that have you heard of Splash, the TV show?
I have not.
Roast beef, you know of this? All I know is I don't know who created it. I don't know who wrote it. I know it's property of ABC, and this, because of Catherine Webb, A.J. McCarron's wife, is the best show I've ever seen.
My God.
Okay, I'll do it.
Catherine!
I decided I would be the first one to go, just to go ahead and get it over with. Oh my God. That is so high. I'm not usually afraid of heights, but when you get up there, it's a totally different ball game.
Oh.
You walk up to the edge and you're like, oh my God, what did I just do?
Do it.
Oh God, I'm so nervous right now. I did not realize it was this high.
It's okay,
until I got
baby.
up here.
Catherine, be careful. There's 35 feet.
Oh my God, I'm like shaking so bad.
Let's see the shaking.
Oh, my God.
Don't!
What a great show. Look at this. I defy you to find a better show than this. It's better than Game of Thrones. Better than Better Call Saul. Breaking Bad did not have this. And now, let's see you get out of the water.
So scary jumping off the 10 meters.
Oh, yeah.
When I saw Catherine go first, I definitely saw the game was on.
Dominic and Sue's on this show. Why? Why are you doing that? Then they bring her out.
To judge our falling stars, we've got two diving all.
Alabama, USA.
Yeah, they cut that out.
2012.
Nice editing job there. And then here she comes. As Dave said off air, disappointed when the robe was on, and then not. Don't call in, Irene. Don't even text. Don't even do it. See, what an excellent show. See, roast beef, you got to admit, this is...
competition.
She's,
I can say many of you know me as Brett Musburger's point of interest.
this was awesome.
I'm Catherine Webb, and I was Miss Alabama USA 2012.
Yep.
How am I famous? Good question. My boyfriend is the quarterback for the University of Alabama.
Ooh.
During the national championship earlier this year, I was singled out by Brett Musburger.
You see that lovely lady there? That's A.J. McCarron's girlfriend, okay? Wow, I'm telling you, quarterbacks, you get all the good-looking women.
Next thing you know, I'm a media sensation.
Yeah.
My life changed overnight.
There you go. Oh, hold on. No, wait a minute. Hold on. What was that? Hold on.
Presented with so many opportunities. Most recently, I was able to do the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition.
All right. Okay, roast beef. No,
it was just an absolute blast.
I know you're recording this for something special. That's not right. That's not right. So do you want A.J. McCarron to...
Nope.
You don't want him to be the starting quarterback now?
A.J. McCarron's garbage.
But Dave, you clearly just saw what happened.
I need him to cover numbers, and he's not going to cover nothing. I'm just telling you.
But it's good for the other team.
It's really good for the other team. Yeah. Maybe there's a possibility. Yeah, we'll maybe work something out. This just in, by the way, on tomorrow's show, we will have Justin Bourne, senior NHL columnist from The Athletic. He's a former video coach of the Toronto Marlies. He's also the son-in-law of Hall of Famer Clark Gillies. He will be phoning into the program tomorrow. We'll talk some Maple Leafs and kind of break down what the season looks like. And, of course, everything NHL as well.
Should we call up Clark and go, do you like him? Like, is he...
That might be the first question.
Because I'll tell you, if Clark Gillies is my father-in-law,
holy crap,
you better walk that line straight. Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, there'll be no Bourne identity in that one. Okay, here we go.
What?
Yeah.
We just become best friends? Yep. You want to go do karate in the garage? Yep. It's
I'd like to thank Clark Judge from the Talk of Fame radio network joining us here, talking a lot of things, including all the NFL you want to hear about, a little throwback to different generations, some Bobby Orr talk, which I thought was interesting, from a Habs fan. Who does that? Really good stuff. And as you mentioned, we got more coming up tomorrow. You're saying it's
Justin Bourne from The Athletic.
But the Bourne identity, is it Jason Bourne?
Is it Jason Bourne? I think it's
Jason
Jason Bourne, yeah.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
And Matt Damon as well.
Oh, Matt Damon.
We're doing really well.
Oh, good show tomorrow. Join us then.